This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
That's huge now, financial wellness strategies. Is there adoption on that? I've been hearing more and more about it, but are companies biting?
Yes and no. They're biting, but not always the right things. What happens is they go out and they will hire, let's say, a company that maybe is also the provider of their 401ks, or maybe also is the provider of some other financial service that they're giving to their employees. And it's great because they'll do it for nothing or very little money. And what happens is the employees get turned off because they feel like they're being sold to, because there's a financial incentive on the other end for the company that's giving the information. There's sort of this disconnect there. The other thing that's missing the mark a lot of the time, Josh, is that companies will sort of buy a library of content and they sort of tell the employees, well, click this link and that'll explain everything. But of course, especially when it comes to younger people, they don't click that link, or they might tell them to watch this seminar, but they don't really allocate the time in their workday, the company doesn't, for the employees to actually do that. And so that's why when I founded Financial Wellness Strategies, I really focused on live community events where you tell the employees, you can leave your desk for this 1 hour and I want you to participate in this, and you're going to be interactive. You can ask your questions anonymously in advance. So it's a very safe space. And that way they learn collectively, and there's sort of an accountability and a peer motivation going on rather than a chore. It actually becomes a benefit that's exciting for employees and lowers the stress. Financial stress is a big problem. So I want to double check this stat because it's from a company called Financial Finesse, which, by the way, also does a great job at this. 80% of employees report being financially stressed. And that takes away from people's focus when they're at work. Half of the financial stress per month happens during the work hours, according to statistics. So it's expensive for companies to have employees sitting there freaking out about their personal money situations and not doing work. So hopefully 2024 will be a year that companies start paying more attention to tackling financial wellness for their employees in the most effective ways, not just kind of throwing a little money at the problem and thinking that they've got it covered.
But I will tell you, I don't want to be Debbie Downer. We did this for a company, very large company. They really embraced it. We had a great 5-6 year track record. People were increasing their savings. I just talked to a client. A lot of them are now clients of our firm. And then they got taken over by a private equity firm. And then, one of these consulting firms said, oh, you don't need Josh anymore, and they went with a very cheap 401k company. And now the complaints are coming in. So I think you are cutting edge. And I think financial wellness strategies and what you do, love to, we should look at synergies, because I think it's a really great idea, because we did this because we still partner with a lot of companies, HR firms. But I find that, and might be a good tip for you in your emerging business, I find that 401ks with $1 to $10 million, where you have closely held business owners who really love their employees, they're all about this. They're like, we love our people and we want you to come in. But when you go to the 50 million and up 401k, it's all about cheap, cheap, cheap. They want to pay 5 basis points. They want to pay 4 basis points. And unless you have somebody who's been burned by the cheap, some of the best companies we've worked with, somebody who maybe has a $50 million 401k where the HR person embraces financial wellness strategies, it is a journey. And I do think what you're doing is so vital, because the majority of 401k companies out there, because we try to compete against these companies, it's all about, write us a check. We'll build you your mutual fund menu. We'll build you your online library. And that's not what helps the employee. The employee loves FaceTime. And I found that too. We really made dramatic financial outcomes. And there was this big push in the 401k space about financial outcomes. Like, what is the outcome of the employee? But I don't know, the last 2 years, I don't know if COVID seemed to undo that for us. What have you found?
I don't have any stats. So as a journalist, I'm not going to quote something that I don't know. What I will tell you is that I think you really nailed it when you talk about these big companies that just come in and they just sell, for example, a video library. And the truth is that's a chore. You've now given the employee another task that they don't want to do. And if it's optional, they're not going to do it. And we know if it's mandatory, they're going to kind of press play and then they check the box that they completed whatever task they needed to do to get a certain number of gold stars or however they measure what they need to be doing as an employee in terms of, just like they have to take sexual harassment courses, they'll have to take financial education courses, but it's just a chore. And half the time they're tuning out. Instead of it being something where you get a break from work, all your friends at work get to come and you have this communal experience and this communal accountability. I mean, when you guys go in, you're live, you're interacting with actual humans. And that's why they connect to you. And that's why they're following up with you afterwards. Very often people come in, and I see this with young people that I speak to all the time. They get a job or they switch jobs. They're told to sign up for the 401k and they know to do that and they want to do that. And then they're given 27 different investments that they can choose from. And they kind of all look the same. And they might go to the HR person. And the HR person is like, well, I can't give you financial advice. So they're sort of lost. And then they just sort of check out and they might check the wrong box. And as you know, that can have very long-term implications if they invest in the wrong fund. I mean, I talk famously in my book about my daughter who, I told her to pick a certain fund and the name looked very similar to the one that I chose that she ended up choosing. We reversed it, we fixed it. But at the time, it was a fund that would have been disastrous versus just a very broad S&P mimicking fund. That's what she invested in, and that's been fine. So it's really important to give young people some guidance, or frankly, anybody some guidance from an unbiased person that's allowed to actually speak to them and explain. You can't make the decision for them, but you can explain how the different funds work and how that might align with their goals, right? You have to give them agency to decide, but it's important to get somebody in there in a way that's very personal and is not necessarily the 401k administrator.